we did our job, and we did what was expected of us, and we did it with honor and dignity. And I guess all we really want is our dignity back. But to lose everything you own for serving your country, and them to turn their back on you the way they've done is just, I don't know, deplorable.
I could live with the fact if Gary died, serving his country, defending freedom. What I can't live with is the fact that nobody cares enough to give health care to someone who went and defended freedom. That's what I couldn't live with if he died for that reason. And that's unacceptable in this country.
As more and more people speak out with the symptoms of Desert Storm syndrome, government is being forced to acknowledge the hazards the troops faced. One of the first risks that emerged in 1991 was depleted uranium. A report to Congress revealed that the troops hadn't known the dangers of handling it. In Britain, The Independent exposed a secret report by the United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority, which highlighted the hazards of DU.
Because depleted uranium had a military benefit and was available in great abundance and relatively cheaply, virtually free for that matter, it was seen as being just a great military boon. And in the course of that, the longer-term environmental and health effects were never really thought of. And so what we saw was the large-scale use of depleted uranium, some 300 tons by weight was expended. And that means 940,000 A-10 bullets and approximately 4,000 or so tank rounds were fired in the 43 days of the war. Had there not been instances of friendly fire, that is, where depleted uranium weapons penetrated U.S. vehicles, perhaps it would not have come to the fore at all.
Depleted uranium is a waste product from the nuclear industry and has a low level of radioactivity. When the DU shells explode, they give off a toxic dust, which when inhaled can cause damage to lungs and kidneys.
I was not informed of us using depleted uranium or the Allied forces, and I thought, well, we went through a heavy artillery area, and these armored tanks and that were blown up by our Allied forces, and we sat in that area for over an hour.
After blowing up tanks with DU shells, many US and British troops went souvenir hunting, putting themselves unknowingly at risk from the dust.
Saw them for a distance, thought, well, looks an interesting one to go and have a look. We'd go inside them, round them, just clamber in, and see what we could find. Any Iraqi personal effects, whatever, and then back to base.
Ian is one of a handful of British troops who have agreed to speak out about his illness. He has many of the symptoms of Desert Storm syndrome.
I've lost weight, which is about 1.5 stone since then. I'm fatigued all the time. I just don't want to do anything. My memory on the short-term basis just goes, and it was known months ago that this depleting uranium could cause effects, yet we'd had no warnings, and now I just want to know that I'm going to be okay.
Although the issue has received media attention in Britain, the Ministry of Defence is unconvinced there is any problem.
I've issued invitations to anyone to come forward, but so few people have actually done so. Now, you could investigate as to why. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's because they don't have symptoms that can be put together as this form of Desert Storm syndrome. It's almost as if people are looking for a syndrome.
The men very often don't come forward because they're worried about their promotions, their postings, their pensions. And it's frustrating for us because obviously it seems as if there isn't a problem because we're the only ones that hear about it. They come to us, they feel that we're the end of the road, we're a civilian organisation. They feel they can trust us because it's confidential. And of course to the military and to the MOD it would seem that there's not a problem, but there is a problem.
And we've been in contact with a number of sources who've informed us that they have in turn have been contacted by people complaining of these symptoms.
Historically, victims of military negligence have managed to bring cases against the Ministry of Defence and the government, win and get compensation.
Once we've collated all the information, if we can prove that there is some common ground, we would like to issue claims against the Ministry of Defence for compensation. Obviously, the more people that come forward, the more likelihood it is of proving the claim.
In 1992, the Ministry of Defence and the Pentagon were brought to court by Mark Stevens, a lawyer who represented the British families of the 9 Gulf soldiers killed in the friendly fire incident. He successfully obtained a verdict of unlawful killing.
The Ministry of Defence and the Army have a sort of a cadre of obsessive secrecy, and they will not let any information out unless you absolutely draw it like drawing teeth. And that's really the only way one can liken dealing with the Ministry of Defence. They're insensitive and they just don't want to know.
In Britain and the United States, there's supposed to be democracies, that's the theory. So it's for the people to hold their leaders accountable. And if the people are not prepared to hold their leaders accountable, then it raises the question to what extent Britain and America are not really democracies, but are plutocracies run by corporate elites who decided to go off and steal 50% of the world's oil supply and use their own lower middle classes comprising the armed forces basically as a mercenary class and knowingly exposing them to grave harm and damage.
I spent 24 years in the military, and basically I felt it was my obligation to go, that I owed the people here something back, and upon my return and needing our government's help, I feel like I've been totally abandoned, that we don't need you any longer and you're on your own.